Happy Friday, everyone. It's January 17th, 2025, and I've got a big update for you on our upcoming winter storms. This is our first troublemaker right here. You can see all of this moisture streaming up from our subtropical jet over Mexico into the southern portion of the United States. This is going to set the stage for our next couple of winter storms that we're going to be tracking intensely here on the channel over the next week or so. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. This is that big streak of enhanced winds coming over Mexico, over Texas, into the southeastern portions of the United States. It's going to be carrying a lot of subtropical moisture with it. This is going to cause some storms in the south, but also look at this little disturbance over here, just a little bit north of that enhanced area of winds, several thousand feet above our heads. This little disturbance, this little kink right here is going to cause a separate storm from what we've been talking about. We've been kind of focused on this larger system that's going to cause an overrun event in the south, and that's still on the table. We're going to talk about that today. But this little feature right here has popped up over the past couple of days, and it looks to me like as we go into Sunday, it is going to provide enough of a turnover for there to be some winter weather over here in the Northeast. In fact, it looks like a full-on winter storm's coming for DC to Boston on Sunday. So we're going to talk about that right here in a second. But first, I do want to show you that our ensemble models here still show the massive trough settling in from Sunday into Monday, bringing our Arctic blast. It's still on the table. I don't even know how long we've been talking about this now, but we are close enough now to really understand the intricacies of what's about to happen here and how far south this Arctic cold is really about to go. Okay, let's increase the resolution here and kind of show you a little bit more clearly what I'm talking about. That plume of moisture from the Pacific is going to start producing heavy precipitation in St. Louis as early as 10 p.m. tonight. There's going to be some isolated claps of thunder, maybe around Memphis to Nashville, some moderate rain down there into the Dixie Alley region as well. Some of the heavier rain will fall right over the Ohio River there as we go into the early morning hours tomorrow. And watch what happens here. Remember, that little divot in the jet stream is going to allow for just enough cold air to come in on the backside here and cause some snow, potentially in Chicago and Detroit, especially in Detroit around 9 a.m. on Saturday. This will be a heavy shot of snow for places like Cleveland, of course, Buffalo, New York. I expect you guys to see some snow. There will be some enhancement from the lakes, so get ready for that. All the while, we're going to continue to see rain and isolated thunderstorms in the southeast. Watch this area, though, as it's likely going to become a stronger pocket of convection that's likely going to produce some severe weather. It's going to be isolated, but look here, right around New Orleans, over towards Mobile, into the panhandle of Florida on Saturday evening. We're probably going to see some gusty winds and, of course, some very heavy rain. But again, that little disturbance is going to kind of link up with the larger system that's coming down. That big trough is going to be finally settling into place on Sunday. And watch what happens here. It allows for more moisture to kind of funnel in to this area right here, and another storm is going to form. So we've got the big one that we've been talking about, the overrunning event for the south, which we're going to talk about more in depth here in a moment. But watch what happens right here. We're going to have snow developing on the northwest side of the Appalachian Mountains and kind of spreading over eastern Kentucky, southern Ohio, over into West Virginia as we go through the day on Sunday, especially in the early morning hours. This is going to become a storm system of its own. And this pocket of precipitation right here is likely going to intensify as it moves off towards the I-95 corridor. We're talking about Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. This looks like a snowstorm for you. To go any farther into the future, we've got to lower our resolution here and look at a more conservative viewpoint. These are the ensembles from the GFS. Once again, it's an average of a bunch of different models put together, so we don't get pump faked by those individual model runs you've probably seen roaming around social media. First of all, I do want to mention that on this side of the cold air that's coming down, while we're dealing with our mess over here in the east, there is going to be a heavy shot of snow coming down through Denver into New Mexico and Texas. There are winter storm watches and warnings that are going out right now in association with this. Strong winds and very cold temperatures are going to be associated with that shot of snow, but the precipitation portion of that storm will be over by Sunday around 4 a.m., which is when our storm that's targeting the Appalachian region, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast will be really coming together. Here in my neck of the woods in eastern Kentucky, we're going to start to see light to moderate snow around 4 a.m. in the morning on Sunday, and watch how quickly this expands into a pretty heavy snowmaker for somebody on the East Coast. Now, of course, this is going to be a little bit of a tricky forecast for those cities that are right on the coast. It always is. There's going to be a rain-snow line. A lot of the major cities are going to straddle it. Right now, I'm more confident in Boston and Washington, D.C. seeing snow than I am necessarily New York City. However, all of the major cities have a chance of seeing some impacts from this, as even the ensemble models, the averaging models here, show a decent hit as that low-pressure center kind of digs down and it ejects off to the east as the big cold front sinks down farther into the central and eastern portions of the United States. So that's going to be a quick hitting and potentially impactful storm from eastern Kentucky all the way up through Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. You guys are going to deal with this as well. It's going to be a good shot of snow up there in Canada over towards New Brunswick. And then that's going to leave us with a huge pocket of cold air, which we've been talking about this for a while. This will be the coldest era of the season for millions of people across the United States. Monday, it's just going to be cold. And then as we go into Tuesday, our focus is going to shift to this. There's going to be an interesting thing that happens down here where some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico is going to overrun the cold air. And when that happens, we are going to see some sort of wintry precipitation, maybe as far south as Houston, maybe in Dallas, maybe New Orleans could see snow on January 21st. This is going to be a rare winter storm if I've ever seen one, and the signal is still very consistent. Now, this one we're a little bit too far out to talk about snow totals and ice totals just yet, but I am confident now that we're going to have a winter storm bringing sleet, snow, and ice to some places that haven't seen it in years as we go into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So a significant portion of Florida even might be dealing with wintry precipitation during the early morning hours on Wednesday, and it does look like it's going to be a pretty good hit of wintry precipitation for Georgia and the Carolinas as well. So that one is a little bit more blurry right now, but it's certainly on the table. But look at this. As we go even farther into the future, another storm is popping up on the ensembles here for late next week. I don't know when it's going to stop. So our Arctic blast is about to cause multiple major winter storms, and we're going to be tracking them right here. But of course, the farther we look into the future, the less confident I am in the exact track and severity of the storm. So let's start with what we know. This first storm that's going to be coming up this weekend on Sunday, as far as snow totals go, we're still not 100% confident on who's going to see the heaviest snow. I do think it's going to be in a corridor that looks about like this. There is enough disagreement between all the models that we have some not very impressive looking totals showing up on the national blend of models output, which is what we're looking at here. But at the very least, I think that we can confidently say that we'll see a couple inches of snow on the northwest side of those Appalachian Mountains from Charleston, West Virginia, back towards Pikeville, Kentucky. And there's going to be a pretty large area of at least 3 inches of snow from around Philadelphia up towards Boston. In fact, the NBM here is showing about 3.6 inches of snow for Boston. That's probably a conservative look at what we could see. But the reason we don't see a very solid area of higher precipitation totals, because this is certainly the kind of storm that could drop 6 inches of snow or more, is because the GFS model shows one thing and the Euro shows another. And if you average those out, you end up with something like this. But regardless of, exactly how many inches of snowfall accumulation you see, we are close enough to confidently say that we are at least going to experience minor impacts as far as travel goes on Sunday here from the mountains of West Virginia into the Washington, D.C. area, all the way up towards Boston. Southern portions of Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are included in this. Right now, the hot spot for the greatest travel impacts is going to be right here in New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. So New York City, Philadelphia, even if you are right on that rain-snow line, if it snows a couple inches and then it rains a little bit and then it snows a couple inches and then it rains a little bit, that's going to lead to an absolute mess on the road. So this will probably be a pretty hectic Monday morning commute as we go into early next week. So get ready for that. And once again, the reason why we don't have a pretty solid understanding yet of exactly how much snow we're going to see is because of the differences between the models. The GFS, which is what we've been looking at, is a pretty bullish model for heavy snow in the Northeast. The Euro is not so much there. In fact, it kind of skips Washington, D.C. here, but we still have a decent chance, 30 to 50% chance of seeing more than 3 inches of snow on the ground up here in New York City, up towards Boston. So the Euro is an outlier, but still it's something that we have to consider when we're making our forecast. But something really interesting about the Euro is if we continue to pull this out here and we shift our focus to the south, confidence is definitely increasing in that winter storm unfolding in the south. Now, once again, this is our probability of seeing 3 inches inches of snow by January 22nd. The fact that we've got 50% probability showing up here this far south is unreal. I mean, this is the definition of a rare winter storm. I don't know when the last time we saw more than 3 inches of snow down here was, but it is certainly on the table once again, potentially all the way to the daggone beaches. And I'm really confident in some wintry precipitation happening over here in southeastern Georgia, and then of course the coastal areas of the Carolinas as well. Now, the second storm, the one that is focused more on the southeast, is not just going to be a snowstorm. I think our Appalachian, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast snowstorm this Sunday is going to be either rain or snow for whoever gets involved. But this next one, because it's an overrunning event, because there's going to be a shallow layer of cold air near the surface, there's probably going to be a lot of ice involved. And this is going to be so hard to forecast because I can't tell you the last time the northern portion of Florida saw a legit ice storm. The way these forecast models work is they work off of historical data, right? So there's going to be a lot of changes with the forecast here, but do know that if you're highlighted in the pink on this map, I would definitely start thinking about potential power outages, other severe impacts that come along with ice and snow. Travel is obviously going to be difficult. If we see a couple inches of snow and some ice in some of these areas here, who knows how long it's going to take to keep the roads clear because the infrastructure is just not set up for it. So nothing's set in stone right now, but I do think there's going to be an area in southern Georgia, maybe southern portions of Alabama, extreme southern South Carolina, and in northern Florida that has to deal with a full-on ice storm as a result of this storm. Our probability of melted snow and sleet, this is the thing that we've been looking at for 3 or 4 days now that kind of started the trend of looking towards the south here, is still showing a good chance of wintry precipitation from the Outer Banks all the way down into southern portions of Georgia, and of course back here towards Texas and Louisiana as well. And remember, all this wintry precipitation is going to be right on the boundary of our major Arctic blast that will be affecting pretty much everybody in the U.S. Here's an interesting graphic from Ben Knoll on Twitter. The lowest temperature from January 17th, which is today, to February 1st is likely going to be below -10 degrees for about 50 million people. So it's going to be very, very cold. Even more people than that are going to experience a temperature from 0 to -10. And then some of those 0-degree temperatures are going to reach quite far south as well. So once again, get ready for some of the coldest temperatures of the season for a lot of people in the pinks and the blues here. The cold air is going to stick with us at least through the 26th here in the southeast, but there are some indications of some warmer temperatures trying to move in after that. Okay, I think a lot of our temperature outlooks in February are going to include a lot more of this and this than this. So there you have it. That's all the weather talk I have for you today. Things are about to get busy here. You're going to see me every day for the foreseeable future, as we're going to have plenty of updates tomorrow about our storm that's going to be impacting the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to have lots of updates right after that about our southern storm, and then it looks like there's going to be another big storm right after that. So subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on. At some point, one of these storms is going to tip the scale for a live stream as well, so turn those notifications on so you see that notification come through. Thank you guys so much for being here. Remember to share this on all the different social media sites so we can get some real weather information out there. There's going to be a lot of stuff floating around, a lot of confusion. So yeah, thank you for watching. Slap that like button, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.